$17,000. That's what an average family in China might have to pay just so their son can get married. In some places, that number easily climbs to nearly 30,000. This payment has a name, Caili, China's version of bride price. Online, some people call it something else, a marriage for sale. But here's what I found. The real reason behind these crazy numbers might actually be hiding inside a piece of medical equipment from the 1980s. Hi everyone, I'm haichuchu. Welcome back to our channel. Before we go any further, let me make one thing clear. The idea of families exchanging money or property at marriage is not unique to China at all. In many parts of sub-Saharan Africa, there's an Asian tradition called bridewell, where the groom's family pays the bride's family in cattle, cash, or property. The logic is almost identical to China's Caili. In South Asia, like India, it runs the opposite way. Dowry, where the bride's family pays the grooms. And if you go back in time, medieval Europe has its own version of marriage property exchange too. So it turns out, China's bride price is really just one regional version of something humans have been doing for centuries. The real question isn't why do Chinese people do this? It's how did China's version turn into what it looks like today? Let's start from the beginning. China's bride price tradition goes back 3,000 years to the Zhou dynasty. Back then, getting married was a whole process involving 6 formal steps, and one of the most critical was nazhen, the formal betrothal step. In never long before civil registries or legal marriage certificates, this exchange was basically proof. The groom's family presented property, the bride's family accepted it, and boom, the marriage was officially recognized by society. So at its core, China's bride price didn't start a purchase, it was a social contract. And what did people actually give back then? It definitely wasn't stacks of cash. Instead, the exchange gifts packed with symbolic meaning. Back then, one of the most important gifts was a wild goose. Wild goose? Because wild geese migrated disciplined pairs and stay with a single partner for life. So giving a wild goose was basically a vow of lifelong fidelity. Fast forward to the Song dynasty about 1,000 years ago, trade was booming and money became common. But one gift remains absolute: tea. There's a cool reason for this. People believe that tea plants could only grow from seeds and couldn't survive if you try to dig them up and replant them. Offering tea leaves as a bride price was a way of saying, I want our marriage to take root and last a lifetime. And here's an important detail most people miss. Even in ancient times, bride price wasn't just cash kept by bride's parents. In most traditional setups, a significant chunk of it was converted into the bride's dowry and sent right along with her to support new couple's future household. But as society grew wealthier, these symbolic gifts of ghee and tea slowly gave way to gold, silver, and luxury silks. By the Tang dynasty, wedding demands had escalated so much that marriage was turning into a massive show of wealth, leaving middle and lower class families buried in overwhelming debt. To stop people from bankrupting themselves, Emperor Gaozong stepped in 659 AD, issuing a decree that put a hard cap on bride price amount based on family's social rank. So basically, China introduced its first official bride price cap law over 1,400 years ago, not to ban the tradition, but to keep society wedding revelry from spiraling out of control. So if Asian bride price were all about geese, tea, and legal caps, how on earth did we get to today's reality of 6 big cash demands and mandatory real estate? To understand that, we have to look at the massive economic changes over the past 40 years. If you talk to someone in China who got married in the 1970s, a respectable bride gift wasn't money at all. It was something called the 3 rounds and 1 song, 三转一响, a bicycle, a sewing machine, a wristwatch, and a radio. These were the ultimate luxury goods of modern agrarian society. By the 1980s, factories were booming, so the standard upgraded to the 4 big things: a color TV, a refrigerator, a washing machine, and a cassette recorder. Then came the 1990s and 2000s. As China urbanized at breakneck speeds, physical appliances were replaced by hard cash. And soon enough, cash wasn't enough. You need an apartment in the city, as millions of young people move to the city for work. Owning a home became the ultimate sign of financial stability. Bride price basically moved from a ceremonial gift into a massive transfer of family wealth, helping a newlywed couple to get foothold in a skyrocketing housing market. Now, housing explains why getting married got more expensive in general, but it doesn't explain why cash demand suddenly blew up in specific rural areas over the last decade. To understand that, we have to look at simple economics, supply and demand. And that brings us right back to the medical equipment from 1980s I mentioned earlier. In the early 1980s, ultrasound machines started popping up in clinics across rural China. For the very first time, families had a way to check a baby's sex before birth. At the time, in many traditional farming communities, there was a deep-rooted cultural preference for sons. Some were expected to handle heavy farm work, carrying the family name, and provide old age support for aging parents who didn't have pensions. When this old cultural preference met modern ultrasound technology, it triggers a massive sex ratio imbalance at birth over the next 20 years. By 2004, China's sex ratio at birth keeps peak of about 121 boys born for every 100 girls. And here's where the demographic lag kicks in. It takes about 20 years for an imbalance at birth to actually hit the marriage market. The generation born about 2004 is reaching marriage age right now in the 2020s. Because of that lag, there are currently tens of millions more marriage-age men than women in China. When you have that many more men than women looking to marry, the economic bargaining power shifts completely. High bride prices are, at their core, just an economic symptom of 20-year-old gender gap playing out today. So why does this leave young people in China today? Is everyone just trapped in this system? Well, the real picture is the new nest, because China is huge, and marriage not very widely depending on where you are. In less developed or rural areas, where financial security is lower and traditional ideas run deeper, high bride prices are still a huge problem. Parents often see this money as a safety net for their daughter or financial cushion for their own retirement. But alongside this reality, a totally different movement is picking up steam. Thanks to public wellness campaign, legal guidance, and shifting mindsets, a new trend is spreading fast among urban and educated youth. More and more young couples are opting for zero bride price. Or if a bride price is paid, the bride's family doesn't keep a single penny. Instead, they match it with their own money and hand the entire sum right back to the young couple. So instead of cash moving between parents, it turns into a joint startup fund funded by both families to help the newlyweds buy a home, set up their place, and build their future together. While the rural-urban divide is still real, the meaning of bride price is fundamentally changing from an ancient burden into modern supportive partnership. So back to the question we started with, is Chinese bride price really a marriage for sale? Have seen all these. I think you agree that calling a marriage for sale misses the point entirely. It started 3,000 years ago as a symbolic contract sealed with tea and wild geese. Evolved through 40 years of crazy economic growth, and is shaped by a massive demographic lag. And today, as young people turn it into a joint startup fund for their own lives, this old tradition is stepped in yet again to fit the modern world. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Does your culture have anything like this? A bride price, a dowry, or something completely different? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. If this video gives you a fresh perspective on Chinese culture and society, hit that subscribe button. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!